Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. Greatly appreciate it. This is Zoom class number 7, and the title of the class is, Are You In or Are You Out? And this class is the product of feedback again, which I love feedback. I'll repeat that a million times. I am a feedback junkie, and I love interactive. I love when people say what they like, what they don't like, as much as possible. We try to do it accordingly. So people in the past said they want the practical. Then I got feedback. People wanted some text-based, more depth, more, can we say, conceptual, philosophical. So this is going to be a little bit different than it was the previous classes, but we're going to try to mix it up as much as possible. So let's just quickly recap what we were speaking about in the last 6 classes. So we first spoke about why we here. And we said that our initial primary focus is of the self. Like the Ramchal says in Mesilas Yesharim, what's a chayvasei ba'ilame, what's a person's obligation is, like the liberated anav, the person who symbolized by the essential lechem eini, which is accomplished by connecting with the self through Torah, as we saw in the second class. It's connecting yourself, your higher self, to your lower self. And as actually we'll find many corollaries that we'll elaborate on future classes between Torah and Anava, wisdom and authenticity. And that is the essence of everyone's unique mission statement. As we said in another class, Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam. First and foremost, I need to be myself. I need to be me. Only then can we become the luchais, as it says, as one could interpret. It says, carve out for yourself. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu 2 tablets of stone, but the way you could read it is also, you become the luchais, as we said. Yes, it doesn't say anything about the self. It says, however, that's because you are the luchais. You have to be the vehicle, as the Maral says, to have a relationship with yourself, and then you could relate to God and to other people. And then in class 3, we said, what does it actually look like in practice? It means being yourself, playing your part. Class 4, we said about staying connected to our bodies, grounded. There's different parts to ourselves. There's our neshama and our body, and we have to stay connected with the body. In class 5, we spoke about addressing a question that, what holds us back? Why can't we be like the kid who just dreams and lives based on our dreams? Because of our fears. And last class, class 6, we spoke about living with insight, which is the beginning of going inside ourselves, to start looking like the Chacham Einav Bereishai. Stop looking outside, start looking inside. That is the beginning of being ourselves. Okay, so tonight's agenda. What are we going to be speaking about in tonight's class? So there's 4 main ideas. Number 1, it's all about you. And that's the main point of tonight's class. Then its application as it relates to Hashem. Then its application that applies to others. And then how does this define our work, what's called chayvasei ba'olamai? What are we doing here? I mean, come on. There's so much that's happening, so much things that's overwhelming. What are we here to do? How that relates to tonight's class. So we spoke about in previous classes how the whole world is about connection. Maral defines the world as relationships. And we said that women for sure could understand this for sure because they understand it's all about relationships. And the first pillar that the world stands on is Torah. The 3 pillars are Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasadim. As Maral says, Gemilas Chasadim is a relationship with others. Avodah is a relationship with Hashem. Torah comes first. Torah is your relationship with your own higher self, with your own neshama, with your divine connection up above. I want to expand on this idea. Is that really so? Can we relate to Hashem or to others without connecting to ourselves? So I want to take this one step deeper, and there's many, many layers and levels that we can go in, and we'll see how many. Tonight we're going to take one. We'll see how many people are willing to go with me deeper and deeper and deeper in. So like we said, our first goal is of the self. Where does one begin when working on the self? So we previously spoke about this focused perspective, what's known as Bishvili nivra ha'olam. Now, literally, what that really means to say is because of me, for me, the world was created. So that would look like something like this. The world just isn't meeting my needs right now. It's like that's how many people feel when they think of Bishvili nivra ha'olam. It's like, yeah, I know this is not the way I expected, this is not the way I wanted, and they interpret Bishvili nivra ha'olam like that, or something like this picture. Like, okay, it's about me. Everybody else move aside, and it's all about me. The thing is that that's not the whole picture. There's a very interesting medrash in Kehelis Rabbah in the 7th parak that says as follows: Kishabara Kadosh Baruch Hu is Adam Arishon. When Kadosh Baruch Hu created the first man, what did he do? So we spoke about in the previous class. Someone, Nacham, I believe, had asked a question that says, "I don't understand. What is it? What did Hashem want from us?" And a very important principle is He didn't want anything from us. He just wanted us to have pleasure. We're actually going to speak about some of the huge theological, philosophical discussions, hopefully tonight, about what did Hashem want from us and how does that relate to our self, our self-knowledge about ourselves, our perspective and evaluation of ourselves. So the Medrash says like this: Keshabar Kadosh Baruch Hu is Adam Arishon. Kadosh Baruch Hu created the first man. Not lo v'chzira al kol iloni gan Eden. He took him around to all the trees in the Garden of Eden. You're so proud, showing him, look at this tree, look at that tree. And Omalo, he said to him, Ra'a might say, look at my actions. How beautiful, how delicious, how precious they are. What have I created? Bishvil chabarasi, I created for you. Now, if we stopped over here, it would sound like the way most people translate Bishvili nivra ha'olam, which is, yeah, it's all for me. No, don't touch my fruit. Don't touch my house. Don't touch my car. Don't touch my stuff. This is mine. But the next words, he gives a different twist. Tein daitcha, be conscious. Shleitachrev es oilami. Hashem says, don't destroy my world. Wait a second. What are you you're telling me to do stuff? What is this? What is this medrash telling us? Isn't it telling that it's all for me? Just for me to have pleasure? So what does this last line, how does it fit in? What does it mean, ten daitcha shleitachrev es oilami? It sounds a little different. And we're going to develop it hopefully in this class and possibly in many classes. Adam Arishon was the pinnacle of creation, who will bring out Earth's magnificent potential. He was called Adam, Himin ha'adama. Where does the word Adam come from? Adam is from Adama, from the earth. As we know, there's a famous interpretation of Adam ke'etz asada, like the tree, the field, that's how man is. What is a tree? A tree is all about its roots. As famous Mishnah Abba says that, a tree that has many branches but few roots is going to be collapsed. But if you have few branches and many roots, then it's going to last. Man is about his roots. It's responsibility for the earth that he was made from. Like people say, oh, you remember your roots, where you came from. That's Adam, taking responsibility for this planet. But then that's a question. So is Bishvili input or output, like we spoke about in the last class? Is it about me or is it about the world? Is it for myself or is it for others? That is the ultimate question we're going to discuss here tonight regarding, well, how do you look at Bishvili nivra ha'olam? Is it saying that for me or is it because of me? And we're going to develop one layer in this class and then again, another one. They're actually two sides of the same coin, and they're both the same idea. Taking responsibility as a form of self-care. And that sounds pretty bizarre. How is that possible, that responsibility is self-care? If anything, shirking responsibility would actually, one would think is, okay, I'm taking care of myself and I'm just leaving everybody else, because if I got to take care of them and them and them and them, then that means I'm just coming in last place. We'll learn to see that actually not. When you take responsibility, is actually when you get the Bishvili Never Ha'elam. Similar type of a graph is life what happens to me or what I make happen? The thing is, what we're going to see is that you're always only living in your world, even when you're living out there in the big world. All the experiences we have in our world, in the environment, there's a special word we have for it in Yiddishkeit called Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence. The unique thing about divine providence is that not only is it specifically tailored for you, it's also tailored by you. The Bishvili of for you is the same Bishvili by you. The same Hashem that told Adam, this is all for you, was the same sentence that said, make sure you don't destroy it. Like we spoke last time, we said that our five senses are the interface. That's the portals, how we experience the world. However, your experience of it, what's called intersubjectivity, integrates it all. What's intersubjectivity? So the translation is, intersubjectivity generally means something that is shared between two minds. As used in the social sciences, it refers to the psychological relationship between people. It is usually used to highlight and contrast individual personal experiences by emphasizing the inherently social being of humans. What this means is that humans are by nature gregarious or social beings, but although they are designed to operate in group situations, each experiences the world and relationship uniquely as an individual. So we can both be living in the same world. However, the actual experience is going to be totally subjective. A basic human example of intersubjectivity is having a shared common agreement in the definition of an object. So most people would experience intersubjectivity when asked to picture an apple. The definition of an apple would be the same. So there's actually many different definitions and applications of intersubjectivity, but the point of the idea of it is there's nothing really objective in the world. The world that Rabbi Shlom gave you to enjoy, the wife, the husband, the son, the daughter, the father, the mother, the uncle, the brother, the co-worker, the rabbi, everything, all of that is not objective. It's subjective. And Rav Dessler makes a fascinating observation related to this concept. It's so interesting because we say this all the time. And Rav Dessler sheds light on this, which it's a large piece, but I'll dwell on it a little bit. He says fascinating. He says, Hashem Elokeinu. We always say Elokeinu. Elokeinu means Elokim Shalanu, our God. It's ours. He's like we own him. He's ours. How can we never say the word of Hashem in the possessive noun? Fascinating. And we say every bracha, Hashem Elokeinu. We say in davening, Hashem Elokeinu. How can we never say Havayasenu? We're not going to say Hashem's name, but Hashemenu and Elikim. Why are we saying Elikenu, but not with Hashem's name? And he says even more, V'lamalai. What do you mean? The midah of ahava is love. Elikim is always in din. If anything, what should be more us would be Havaya than Elikenu. And he says even in the future, when it's going to be Hashem Echad Shema Echad, which that's going to be Hatayva Meitiv, it still doesn't say Haviyasenu, that Hashem is ours. So the words here are cryptic. I'll explain it a little bit. He says, Ha'inhu shegeder shalanu. What does it mean it's ours? Mara al hanikna means that we acquired it. Bisarusa dilatata shalanu. It's a classic terminology in Hasidic thought and desire, which means to say, we acquired it. It's something that we did. Bechirasenu, our free will. B'chinas nefesh amal amlulai. Which Rav Dessler says is a very frightening idea, which I'll mention that probably at some point, that you only have what you schwitzed over, what you sweat over. Those nail biters, what you put in the effort, that's really the only thing that becomes you. The love that Hashem has, which is the midah of chesed, which is Havaya, Hashem's name, that's a gift from above, like it's born in desire, and therefore that's not you. Essentially, what Rav Dessler is saying is that there's two primary names for Hashem. As we know in the classic pasuk of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. One of the main objectives of the famous pasuk of Shema is that Hashem is Elokeinu. Now, but why we only use the possessive noun on God in Elokeinu? What is the difference between Hashem and Elokeinu? Hashem is existence. God created existence. That's the kindness of Hashem that He made the world. That's not ours. What is ours? Elikim, and that's the kavanah one is supposed to have when they say the name of Elikim. Hashem is the ruler of nature and of hashkacha pratis. So why would hashkacha pratis be ours? Because like Rav Dessler is saying from the Zohar, isarusa dilatata means to say, it is tailored by us. We control our hashkacha pratis. Rav Dessler talks about this in many different places. And I'm just going to develop this idea a little bit tonight, how that relates to intersubjectivity, which will translate how b'shvili never oilim can mean at the same time it's for you, but it's also by you, because of you. Is the same thing as that Hashem said, I want you to get the pleasure, is the same idea of you are responsible for that. And when you take responsibility, that will be the greatest act of self-care. It will be the greatest form of pleasure that you'll be able to acquire for yourself. So that was part one of what we said our agenda for tonight is to show how it's all about you. Even hashkacha pratis, which is the Jewish concept that everything is custom tailored. Exactly, it's supposed to be. I'm very big on this because so much happens in life that is so unpredictable, and it's just like it's meant to be. This is divine. This was destiny. However, the experience of that is going to be up to us. Now, we spoke previously, like we said, that the way to connect with Hashem, the omnipresent, Beinod Lamakim, is by being your chelik elakamal, being your piece of the puzzle. What does that mean? So we're going to develop now the second thing we said with the agenda is, how does this relate to our relationship with Hashem? So I don't want to go overboard with this, but I'm tempted to do this because this is from Rav Ashlag in his Hakdama to the Zohar, and he says pretty big stuff, if I may say. I'm not going to go through all the pieces. I want to quote the ones which are related to what we're going to speak about tonight. He has many chakiros, many questions that he poses regarding the essence of man and his objective, his role in life. And let me quote some of it. This is his third question. I'll translate in English, but if you have these slides, you could see in Hebrew. This I do in all my shiurim. I just say it outside. You could see the words in the Hebrew. He says the Mekabalim say that the soul of a person is a chelik elakamal. It's a piece, literally, from God above. In a sense, there's no difference between Hashem Yisbarach and the neshama. It's just Hashem is everything. Like I said from my chavrusa, he says Hashem is the cover of the puzzle box. It's just a picture, and we're pieces of that. The neshama is a chelik. So it's almost like taking a rock off of the mountain, that there's really no difference. It's just that the mountain is everything, and this is a part. Now again, with Mishalom, it doesn't literally mean to say it's like that, but it just gives you an understanding. So he says, based on this, you have to ask the following question. So we understand that when a rock is broken off in the mountain, so you take a hammer, you take a sledgehammer, and you break off a piece, and now you have a part from the whole. But how's it possible that Hashem Yisbarach to break off a piece from His essence until like you take off a part of Him and you take a part and that's inside you and that's the neshama, that you could understand that it's part of His whole thing? How does it even make sense? What does it mean a chelik elakamal? How could we like break off a piece and put that inside of us and voila, this is my neshama? That was one question in his Chakira Gimel. A related, he has another question in Chakira Vav. He says this, that they say that the person, and this is what we're going to develop a little bit later on also, is the center of all of reality. That all the worlds, the higher worlds, this world, everything inside of it was created only for the person himself. As a classic Kabbalist, they quote a Zohar instead of necessarily the Gemara, although he does right now. It's a Zohar in Parashat Tazriyah. That person has to realize the whole world was created for him, and he has to believe, now he quotes the Gemara in Sanhedrin, that the world is created for the person. He says it's hard to understand. For me, some small, minuscule person who is so insignificant in this whole world, for sure, in contrast to the cosmos and to the greater spiritual worlds that there's no end to them. How is it possible that Hashem created all for me? How could the person be the purpose of all of this? He says, because every lacking, and I cut and paste over here, this is not necessarily straight, every lacking that a person wants to think about himself, herself, her body, is after all the answers that you could say, the problem is it all gets pointed back at Hashem. Hashem created us this way with our nature, and it's clear that he made us and not ourselves. Now, he knew everything that's going to happen to us. He realized we're going to have this disorder, we're going to have this downfall, we're going to have this insecurity. He realized all of that nature that's going to happen and all the bad characteristics we have. But he says, so now we have to understand. So how is that possible? How could he have done this? As the Gemara in Tainis Tavchav says, that there's a Meiser Rebbe Lazar that once encountered a person who was very ugly. And he says, how ugly is that person? And he says, go tell the craftsman that made me how disgusting is the vessel that you made. And he says that Chazal already tell us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world only to give pleasure for his creatures. He says, now we have to think and put our analysis and our thoughts where the end of it all, of the creation of the world, that was all to give pleasure to the people that he created. See, obviously, that he created the neshamas with a great amount of desire. And this is part of the answer where he answers the questions. And to receive that which he's giving to them. Because all the amount of pleasure that a person gets is always measured according to the amount of ratzon. How big is the desire? Anything that you think about in life, if you get it, if you don't really want it, it's not so much pleasure. The pleasure is always going to be commensurate with the amount of desire that there is relating to that. That's how much greater the pleasure is going to be. Less of pleasure, so it's going to be less amount of pleasure. So he says so that it must be that if Hashem created the world to create pleasure, then obviously he created person's souls with a great desire, unbelievable amount of desire. And that actually explains why we always feel empty, because there's such a strong desire where Hashem wanted to give us the greatest pleasure. The greater the pleasure, the greater desire has to be. It always is going to go together. So he explains, he says, so this idea that the souls are a break, like a broken piece, so it's a part of Hashem, how could you take a piece off? So he says, based on the way he qualifies the creation, he says, just like, yes, a sledgehammer could break off a physical thing and break it into two, so too in spiritual realms, the change of the form is a change of essence in regards to spirituality. So he gives a very nice mashal. He says, like, imagine two people love each other. And you say they're so connected. Now, they're not literally connected as one body. But let's say you say that they hate each other. They're so far from each other, like from Mizrach to Myriad, from east to west. So again, it's not about spatial closeness or distance. It's regarding their stance to each other, where when they're on the same page, where he loves what he loves and he hates what he hates, comes out that then they're attached one to the other. What we see from this idea from Rav Ashlag, besides the fact that it has a lot of great depth in answering a lot of the questions regarding how do we look at ourselves, who and what we are we a piece of Hashem, then how could I be so low, and all those different things, where maybe for a different time to delve into greater depth regarding that we are, he goes through the body and the soul, which are things we can develop later on when we talk about in greater details regarding the relationship with the self. But that, what we are, with the chelik elikam amal, is we are a piece of Hashem. And the one difference that we have is that we have this great desire to receive, and that is what Hashem created the world for us to receive. And the way he did that is by giving us that in other words, we are Hashem, if you could think of it that way. So the only difference is that the shinu tzura, that difference is that we want to receive. And we that's what gives us the ability to get and receive from Hashem. I'm not going to answer questions on that in case anyone wants to ask about that. But what I wanted to bring this in for is just to get a greater, deeper Kabbalistic appreciation that if a person wants to connect with Hashem, the connection with Hashem, like you always hear the words being more godly like. What that means to say is that it's connecting to the essence of our neshama. That is Hashem inside of us. So if you want to have a relationship with Hashem, you can only have it by connecting to your own neshama, because that is Hashem. Distance from Hashem is when we take that desire and we don't use it in a connected way. We use it in a disconnected way. Think about a person that has a desire for their spouse, but instead use it on some fake, virtual, artificial thing. It's taking that desire, which was designed for that other thing, and is then wasting it on something else. So that is how a person has a relationship with Hashem, is only by being yourself. Is only by being your chelik l'kamamal. And we're going to discuss in later classes. That's what tefillah is. A lot of different things are. We mentioned a little bit in passing in last class, where many different mitzvahs showing is going inside yourself, living life with insight. If you want to have a relationship with Hashem, it's not like Hashem is there, like as if you're connecting with someone or something outside of yourself. Hashem is in you. It's the chelik l'kamamal. That's the way of relationship with Hashem. So that was part 2 of tonight's class, which is showing that when we say it's all about you, even your relationship with Hashem, after Torah, Avodah, it's an outgrowth of, and I'll develop a little bit more tonight after I talk about the next part, to show how that's even, so to speak, the Hashem outside of ourselves. It's also an outgrowth of the relationship with ourselves. Oh, actually, this was just the last piece also. He says, if so comes out that from a certain element, that the light of Hashem we receive in the vessel, which is that desire to receive, there's really no difference between the person and Hashem. It's getting everything straight from Hashem. The difference between Hashem and our neshamas is nothing more than that neshama, which is a part of Hashem, is that measurement of the light, which is in the vessel, which is the desire to receive, that is separate from Hashem, because Hashem is all about giving, and we're about taking, which Rabbi was also busy with that idea that you could break the whole world down into givers and takers, and we're going to see that's actually one of the most important when we have self-definition about in our relationship with ourselves. Are we giving or are we taking? Are we a soul or are we a body? Says that's where it gets a difference from being everything to being a portion. Because any time that you're taking is you're only a part, you're not everything. Versus in giving, you can become everything. Now, segueing to the next part, the same thing, this is the next part number 3 in the class, is same thing as Beinod Machavere. Is like we said, Torah, then there's Avodah, and then there's Gemilas Chasad. How so? So it's a very important Chavos Halvavos for the whole, like it should be like the advertisement almost for this class. Because what are we doing over here? We're putting our analysis, our study into the self. Why are we putting that into versus all types of midas or all types of altruistic types of objectives? So the Chavos Halvavos says in Shar Bechina Perikei like this. He says, Ach ezem in karbelin, what species is the closest to us? And in that species, we have to go ahead and analyze the most. It's the sign of wisdom that's inherent and evident in the human species. And this is the word we're going to discuss. He's the miniature world. And he's the closest cause. The reason for this whole big world is because of this small little world called the human being. He says, if we're able to really get a grip on what we talk about from the person, we're going to understand all the secrets of this world, because he's exactly similar to the bigger world. There's this concept of the person being called an oilam katan is beautifully developed in Avis Reb Nassan. I'm not going to go through all these things, but in case you take a glance, the Avis Reb Nassan, I actually learned this when I was doing Shas for my father. So I finished all Mishnah, so I was doing Brises, and I was going through Avis Reb Nassan. He goes through the whole world, and he shows how the whole world is in the person. It's incredible. You got to take a look. It's Avis Reb Nassan, Perek Lamed Aleph. showing how the tears are the streams, and the towers are is the neck, and everything. It's incredible how you see a person's here are the forests, everything. He goes through the whole person. Imagine if you understand, and actually in Hasidic thought, it's a big thing. The Nachman is big. We're clapping. Everything you do, everything you're moving, is the world. That's because you're, and this is the point that I actually wanna develop. So one of the more famous ideas that a person's cut in, like a miniature world, is that just like the world is 2/3 water and 1/3 earth, so to a person is primarily 2/3 water and 1/3 earth. And that's because a person is a microcosm of the world. Now, that's why we know that if you save one person's life, it's like it's like you save the whole world. It's not. When we say kilo, it's not just like, okay, what's called a guzma, an exaggeration. It actually is, and it's important for people to understand, like with DNA, if you understand what a microcosm is, which we're going to develop a little bit, you literally saved the whole person if you get just the microcosm. So if you save one person, you literally save the whole world. What is a microcosm? A microcosm is a little world. Mikros kosmos in Greek. The Greek term was modified to microcosmos in medieval Latin, when early medieval scholars referred to humans as miniature embodiments of the natural universe. They either employed the Latin word microcosmos or they used the English translation less world. Another related definition is human nature, or the human body as man, representative of the wider universe, considered as a miniature counterpart of divine or universal nature. And this is again, we're talking more philosophical tonight, but these have huge psychological and social ramifications, which we'll probably develop in the next class or two, unless I get feedback, which tells me otherwise, is that everything out there in the big world is in here in small little me. I have a concept called my projector principle. What is a projector? A projector, or an image projector, is an optical device that projects an image or moving objects onto a surface, commonly a projection screen. Now, I'm referring to more, let's say, more the primitive types of projectors. How does a projector work? A projector works that there's something inside that small little machine. If you're seeing something on the screen, on the wall, whatever is being projected out there in some big theater, what are you seeing? You're seeing what's inside the projector. The projector magnifies and projects you out there. That's the relationship between the world and yourself. Which means to say, what you're seeing out there is really a reflection of your inner self. A microcosm has a projector onto the macrocosm. So essentially, what you're going to experience is the bishvili nivra ha'olam. You always only experience your own miniature world. That's what a microcosm is. And actually, that's where the primitive projectors were. They would actually, you had a small little thing like an ant, and you project it out there, and you see this big thing. But you're only seeing what's here and small out there. Let me give a simple, it's very simplistic, but it's basic. The cognitive model, it's one type. I work with this a lot, obviously. It's a very basic idea of understanding how we work. I use the Beckian theory, there's Ellis. That's the cognitive model, ABC. One of the ways of putting it down is that a person experiences A, which is adversity, which is a negative event, which is the circumstance. Let's say I didn't get selected for the choir. Then there's a belief. I have a terrible voice. I'm never going to be any good at singing. And then there's C, which are the consequences, which are the feelings and the behaviors. Feel sad, give up on practice singing. Now, what happened over here? She wasn't selected for the choir. Her emotion of feeling sad, giving up on practicing singing, is not necessarily inherent in not getting selected for the choir. it reminds me of a story of two brothers, Mikey and Ike. Mikey was always complaining. Nothing was ever good. Ike was always happy, always saying that things were great. Now, they were twins. It came time for their birthday. The parents didn't know what to do. They weren't wealthy, but they knew that whatever happens, Mikey's going to complain. So they figured, okay, we usually try not doing this. We try treating our kids, similar, but they realized the little money they had to buy presents, they were going to go buy Mikey the top new camera that was out there. They were going to splurge a little bit. And Mikey, they're just going to get him anything because he's always happy. So they got Mikey the thing, and he's like, okay, what is it already? It's my birthday. And he starts unwrapping, and he sees it's a camera. A camera? Oh, it's so stupid. How come I can't have a Segway? How come I can't have something else? Technology, something that has a motor. I hate this. I hate you. You never give me anything good. So it didn't work. And then Ike, what the parents did, they put animal dung in a box. And Ike's opening up, and it smells, and it's whatever. And he's opening up, and they're looking and seeing, well, how's he going to react good to this? Because he's always happy, but this is already going too far. And after a while, he's throwing it up, and he's smiling, he's laughing, and he's dancing. And the parents think, what's going on over here? He says, you can't fool me. If there's animal dung, there must be a horse somewhere nearby. So essentially what it means to say is that the objective world that we live in, we never experience it just so. The intersubjectivity is always going to paint our reality. One more cognitive application of this concept. You meet a new person and think about asking them to go out for coffee. Now, again, we're going to discuss this later on because obviously anyone who sees this understands how much of the self is coming into this, but I'm just touching the surface just to understand the concept. We're just talking about more philosophical tonight. So the glasses is a big concept that I use a lot also, which is why do I think the way I think and feel the way I feel and then experience the way I'm experiencing it, is that there's something called a core belief. A belief about myself, let's say. So if I believe I'm not worthy, so right away what's called my ANTS, A-N-T-S, automatic negative thoughts are going to be, why would they ever go out with me? And guess what happens? My behavior is, I don't ask the person to coffee. I probably even find something wrong with them. I probably say, oh, they're so stupid, they're so stuck up, whatever this and that. But let's say I have the feeling I am worthy. So the thought is, we might have fun if we go out together. And the behavior is, I ask the person to go for coffee. And guess what? She says yes, and we have a great night together. What's going on over here? It's the same situation. I do this with people all the time. I talk about an example about, if they, imagine they came out of my office and there was all the tires were flat. And I said, what would happen? And invariably they say one thing or another. And I say, well, I could describe you 5 different types of reactions from 5 different types of people. How's it possible? Because your experience is not objective. It's a relation that you have with the world out there as a microcosm to the macrocosm. It's like neurobiology, really, more than the projector, because there's an interplay that shapes both you and the world at the same time. How is it that my small little me is about the world? Why do you have to say Bishvili Never Olam? Why can't you just say Bishvili Never Ani? What does it mean Bishvili Never Olam? What does Shlomie Schwartzberg have to do with the big world out there? I'm in my little study right now. What does that have to do with anything? And the secret is, and we'll develop it a little bit tonight, is that you, like the butterfly effect, affect the whole world, but more than just that, it affects your own world. The world affects you, and you affect the world, the micro to the macro, and the macro to the micro. And that's actually what the world was created for, as a hybrid of the world and you. Now you could understand the words of the Mesilas Yesharim that says, Chayvasai ba'olamai. Interesting. What do you mean, olamai? My world? What does it mean, my world? It's not my world. It's your world and your world and your world and your world. Everyone who's on this class, it's all your world. How can we both own the world? Yes. Your perception of the whole world is your own world. No one has that world. You're the only one who has your world. The world was created for you and you and you and you and me and her and she and them. Every single one experiences the world in their own unique way. And that's exactly by you and for you. Now, firstly, what happens is a concept called introject. I'm just illustrating over here, showing how this happens, the interplay from the world to you and you to the world. What's introject? Introject is to incorporate attitudes or ideas into one's personality unconsciously. So as you can see in the picture, like you have parents who are one of the greatest formators of person's attitudes or ideas, and that's because we introject. We take in from the world, making the micro. And that's where the micro then, like I said, projects onto the macro. I actually had someone just the other day that has ADHD. And I was describing to him the symptoms, and one of the things I was trying to normalize the experience is, which I deal a lot with people with ADHD, is to understand that if you're not going on medication and until you're doing very heavy behavioral or working on being very, very mindful in your life, there's going to be severe limitations. I didn't say that word, but that's the concept in your life. And you have to learn to accept it, not in a defeatist type of way. That's just me. Now, many people hear it and they're able to take that and yeah, it's okay if every 5 minutes in the middle of doing a task, I get distracted and I check my phone. Because that's me and that's okay. And everyone has their thing. And I'm willing to see the beauty of having the type of mind that I have that's able to think out of the box and be creative. And I would never want to give that up. But that's okay. And I can get distracted and I'm not judging myself. Now, what we noticed was that it wasn't just one time, it was a bunch of times. He was having resistance to accepting this. It wasn't resonating by him to accept this limitation. And what we noticed is that why? Why is he being so tough on himself? It's because he had a certain belief. The belief that, no, if I want to, I can do this. Where'd you get that idea from? I don't mean to say I don't mean to say that the concept is not true. If there's a will, there's a way. I mean to say that emotionally there was a disconnect with that idea. And partly where that comes from is from the caregivers in a person's life. The parents always saying, yes, if you really wanted to, then you could, and you're just being lazy, and look, last week when you wanted to do that, you did that. And we introject all that. And it gets into our system, and the macro is suddenly creating the micro. The world, it's nurturing everything, all that molds the person's personality, and therefore we see the world impacting us. And then the same thing is in the other way. We impact the world history, the impact of one person on the world. If you study world history, you see the personalities, you see the movements, you see everything out there. Everyone has their carbon fingerprint. We affect the world. And that ultimately is what the world is about. It's a platform for every individual's dance with what's outside. And you have your own unique individual world. It's like a humanistic homeostasis, which is that everything is going to be, to you, balancing with the world. And that's what the world was created for. How your world mirrors your chelik elakamal, your God, and this is your world. It's your inner you as it's projected onto the outer world. Like we're saying, what is a microcosm? It's just it's the world as a macro of our micro. To say a little bit, like going back to the idea of our relationship with Hashem, in Kabbalah, the world was created chalal. There was Hashem, so to speak, made it tzimtzum. He made a place where it was devoid of himself. I'm not going to get into that exactly. What does that mean? But then he put an ur panimi, which is the kav, which goes inside, and then the ur makif. Inside ourselves is the same thing. The Hashem inside of us is our neshama. The Hashem beyond ourselves, at least for now, because we can get bigger, is the Hashem, the macro, what we call the ur makif. And we are the micro, the ur panimi. So even the greatest Kabbalistic processes of the world evolution happens in every single person, as Reb Nachman says in Likutei Maran. Reb Nachman says in Torah Mem Tes, he says, V'chal, the rule is, Shebrias ha'olamas, the creations of the world, V'avodas Hashem Yisbarach, B'pulos Midas Taivos, and the work of Hashem, with actions and good attributes that we have, Him B'china Achas Mamish, is literally the same thing. The burning fire in your heart is the light of the infinite. And the cavity that divides is the primordial symptom necessary to create free will. That is, in every single person, the reality. And a person has to connect to his part of Hashem. As the Teres Avram Grudzensky, he explains that we have a very interesting differentiation of the bracha when we see a Jewish stage and a non-Jewish stage. He says by a Jewish stage, we say the bracha that it's shechalak michachmas lireya, versus by a non-Jewish stage, we say shenasa michachmas lireyasim. And this is one of the fundamental differences between Jewish wisdom and secular wisdom, is that, and same thing he says we find by the Jewish king and the non-Jewish king, is do we say that it's shechalak or shenasa, and also between lireyav and libriyasav, is by Jewish wisdom, it's from inside, like we quoted from Rav Volbe in the other class. There's a spring inside of yourself. You just have to tap inside. Hashem is inside of you, not necessarily outside. What's beyond you is the greater quality of Hashem. But your connection with Hashem is inside of you. Your relationship with other people is also inside of you. You're a projector. Every person you have a relationship with, the experience you have with them is all intersubjectivity. It's all your interpretation based on your beliefs of who and what they are. If you want to change the movie, it's not out there. Change the film inside. That's what you'll see outside. That's my projector principle. And that's encapsulated in Talmudic dictum of Bishvili Nivra Ha'elam, which is that we're all leaders taking responsibility to change the world. Bishvili Nivra Ha'elam means to say that it's for me is the same thing that it's by me. If I want to have the pleasure of the world to experience it, I need to go ahead and take that responsibility, because I'm going to have that experience based on myself. If I'm unhealthy, I'm going to see everybody as unhealthy. If I'm healthy, I'm going to see the beauty in the world. So, Bishvili Nivra Olam, yes, Hashem says, I made it for you. Be careful that you don't destroy my world. Me? Wait a minute, I'm just a consumer. What do you mean? You're the creator. I'm the consumer. No, you're the creator. Elokeinu. Hashem says, I'm existence, but you define your divine providence. Your everyday experience is coming back to you. You want a relationship with Hashem? Go inside yourself. You want a relationship with others? Go inside yourself. Because everything you think of yourself is being projected out there on the world. Here's just one illustration of it. It's not the whole idea, but it just shows one of those cycle, like I'm forgetting one of the emails that I mentioned, that she mentioned about the cycle. That our actions towards others impact others' beliefs about us, which cause others people's actions, which reinforce our beliefs about ourselves, which influence our actions, and so on and so forth. This is the Pygmalion effect, what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy, which yes, people are doing this to themselves in how they react with others, interact with others, the secret, all these different concepts about being magnetic field. Your own existence and experience will then create the macro, will create the larger world. And that's what the Rambam says. I want to compare it if I dare. The Rambam says regarding Hashem, he says, "B'yedias atzmi kiviyachol," when Hashem knows himself, so to speak, Yedea kol nevram, he knows all the creations. And it's not like an awareness beyond himself. Again, that's something philosophical. We're not going to get into theologically what that means right now. But just a simple translation means Hashem doesn't know things as if like, oh, I heard about something, I know something, because there's nothing outside of himself. When he knows himself, he knows everything. We are a chelik halakam. When you know yourself, you will know everyone in the world. Not an awareness from outside of yourself, but from within yourself. If you connect to yourself, you're connecting with Hashem, and you're connecting with other people. And that's where we have to go into. Just to end with the idea, the Nefesh HaChaim said, I just want to leave some time for questions. The Nefesh HaChaim says, we're called a Tzelem Elikim. He opens up his sefer discussing this idea, the classic Lithuanian Kabbalistic thesis of Nefesh HaChaim. Says, what does it mean to Tzelem Elikim? Elikim, like we said, is who runs the world. Hashgacha Pratis. Hashem is Havaya, and Elikim is basically the Hashgacha Pratis. Why we call it Tzelem Elikim is because Elikim is what's called Bala Koiches Kulam. All the force of the world, all the energy comes from Elikim. We are that in miniature. All the concentrated power of the Beis Hamikdash, which is the control panel of the universe in small, is all inside me. I decide my fate. All my destiny is inside of me because of intersubjectivity, because of how I see the world. So if I want to have a relationship with others, if I want to have a relationship with Hashem, as we said from the Maral, before Avodah, before Gemas Chasadim, you need to have Torah. You need that relationship with yourself. You can't have a relationship with Hashem without connecting to your own Chelik al-Kamimah, because that is your Hashem. You can't connect with others without connecting with yourself, because you're only seeing yourself, as we'll discuss in greater detail in Mitzvah in the next class. A great length to show how this ends up happening with my projected principle, that you only see yourself. The microcosm is being projected out there on the world. Your experience is this dance of you with the world, and it's just you. You're the controller of that. That is tonight's concept of the class. Are you in or are you out? The objective is to be in ourselves. And when we do that, then we could experience the world, because it's always going to be chayvasi ba'olamai. You live in your world, not in anyone else's world. That is your objective to being you. So that was more philosophical, like we said, more text-based, as was requested. If anyone has any questions, I know I didn't really leave room for, by me, interactive is a big thing. Like the ad said about being interactive, that's really objective, because I have, like I said, like way too many Maverickheimers and just so many different ideas how to go with it. Objective is when you put like a mastermind group, all the ideas together, it'll help be klal. It's going to take us places where we never would have necessarily seen or understood or imagined. But again, that was tonight's class about going inside, understanding that if you want to go on to the next step of having a relationship with others, Hashem, it's got to start from within, inside of you. If not, you're not. Yeah, you don't have no. You say and bin you don't got nothing inside of you. Chaminda, you're here with us.
I'm here. Yep.
Okay, fine. Any thoughts? Any questions? Any comments?
Me personally,
or it's too heavy on the philosophical side.
It's not heavy. It's just I feel like you're saying a bunch of little details, and I don't feel it really being strung together, at least in my brain. So
okay, so let me
the parts that you
good. So I'm happy
said
you brought it up. Let me put it together. That's why
I had a question.
The ones you had the questions, yeah, okay.
Which I felt was important.
Okay, so we can
said
then
the
ask
aspects where you were lacking. I forgot who you said. Dessler? I don't know. I forgot who you said it. Where you were reading from text and explaining it. Who?
Rav Ashlag, the Balasura.
Where you said if Hashem created us and we're lacking, what does that mean? And that whole concept, I felt like you didn't end up with an answer.
I wasn't coming to answer that. That wasn't the main objective. The main objective was to show.
Well, so two specific parts, if you can answer that aspect. If Hashem created us and what we're lacking, what does that mean? And the other part where you said, you said a bunch of parts, but these two parts stuck out at me. The other part where you said, however much your ratzon is, something like that. I don't know what you said. That's I don't know.
Right. I think I alluded to that in one class about that you are your ratzon. The famous pasuk that you have to have kavanah by Pesukei Zimra. The truth is, really, the only thing that really is us is our ratzon, because really we have no us. We're all Hashem. What is us is only the ratzon. Where Ashlag is alluding to is that you're really just your desire, because that's the only thing that makes us into clay kibul. Our neshama is Hashem, our body is Hashem, everything is Hashem. So what is you? You are your ratzon, and that's what bechira comes down to. About what are you going to choose to do with that ratzon? That's the basic answer. And the question about you said about what Rabbi was alluding to, which I think he developed similar to the lines that I developed these concepts about, is that the two parts come down to, and this is where I just didn't get up to it yet, in this trajectory of just laying out these concepts of the self is that what does it mean to have a relationship with the self? We're going to see is really different parts of ourselves. And they're really the nice and makabel, like in every relationship. Inside of you, there's a nice and makabel too. So the parts that we look at and we say that are, so to speak, deficient are those receptacles, are the receiving parts. Those are our neshama is the giving parts. And the objective is to turn those parts into giving parts, is to elevate. There's so many different words that we use in our tradition. But that's not.
I don't know what you mean. What parts that we're lacking? How are we giving to them?
Like when you take any desire and let's say a person has desire. Okay, a classic example is, let's say, with boys. Boys have certain desires, and that seems to be like a deficiency. But that's a vehicle for connection with a relationship in the unity of a marriage.
Okay.
That's the holiest thing. So everything in this world is when you connect the two halves, create the unity of the world. The whole world is connections. So
okay,
therefore,
so how about an example with women, since you are talking to women, where most women would have low self-esteem type of thing, where they would feel they're lacking? Pick an example like that.
I should pick an example of where they feel. I just, before I get that, I just want to, because since you said something about the class that they seem like different pieces, I want to string it together.
For my brain.
Right, no, so I want to string it together because it was a lot of deep ideas. When I say deep, it means to say, I'm putting together things that are just showing, and there's so many different layers and energies that's going to come out of this idea. The objective of tonight's class was to show from the text and from Jewish thought and tradition, and from, I guess you could call it psychology, but philosophically speaking, that everything comes back to yourself. If you want to experience Hashem or the world, and this was only the beginning, it's going to evolve, we're going to develop it over future classes, it comes back to yourself. So if I would have explained it in, let's say, an emotional sense or in the relational self, people might understand it in that way, but they say, okay, who said that's intrinsic? I'm showing you, philosophically speaking, Jewish thought, it has to be that way. You are the microcosm. You're the olam cotton. Everything that happens out there is all inside of you. So when you do this and you do that, besides the fact that it gives significance to everything I'm doing, it also shows that everything is from inside of me. And if I want to have a relationship with Hashem or other people, I have to first have that in the relationship. And I can't have that without having that with myself. So again, that's going to please the people that are cognitive or intellectually based people. Then the people that are saying, okay, but what does that mean? I don't feel that. That I'm going to develop in the next classes, because there's always different. Some people are in, it's many different ways how Bali Machshava defined it. Some people are in Oilma, like the Arizal says. Some people live in the Oilma Tzilas, Bria, Tzira, Sira. Some people live in the Oilma HaMachshava. Some people live in the Oilma HaHergesh. Some people live in the Oilma HaGufni. So it's going to hit everyone in different places. So everyone's going to have to be a little bit patient, because it's going to be hitting in different spots. But that's what I was connecting tonight. I was showing how it's the intersubjectivity. It's the experience of yourself that relates to Hashem and relates to others. And that's Chaybasei Ba'alamai. Your objective in your world is being you, because that's exactly how you experience the world. The whole world is all through your interpretation. That's how you experience the world. And that's exactly what you're supposed to be. It's your piece of God. Imagine God is in all these pieces creating the world. It's you. Which part, tell me, is there any part of it, philosophically speaking, that you find difficult?
Well, you lost me from the beginning.
Okay, so
my mind was a little bit out to lunch, but certain parts it became alive. But it's not that you lost me. It's just that you went into the text and certain things I wanted to understand more, but you just kept on continuing.
Yeah. I got you.
This is my brain. I can't speak for everyone else. But even what you're saying now, the aspect of, I'm not refuting what you're saying, because I've heard it a million times, this aspect of that it's projection and it's all coming from you and your perception and all of that. But what exactly does that mean? For example, I don't know, that it's all within you, it's all your world. I don't know. It sounds like just words to me. That's me.
It's a microcosm. It's a microcosm. If you understand what a microcosm is, why we call it an olam kadmon, even the the non-Jewish philosophers called man a microcosm, a miniature world. Why is it that way? Why are we miniature world? Like I didn't want to go through the office of Nassim, it's fascinating. You see, we're exactly like the world in miniature. But what would that even mean? What is a miniature? A miniature is supposed to be that you have everything in here. What's the point of that? It's to illustrate this idea that the whole world is inside of me.
So I don't know what that means. The whole world is inside of me.
That's what philosophy is. You don't like philosophy so much.
No, it's not that I don't like philosophy. I do like philosophy.
You like more psychology.
I don't understand. No, I like philosophy. I like psychology. I like the depth. I like the text. I like all of it. I don't understand exactly what that means. The whole world is inside of me. That's me personally. But
what do you mean? Explain the question. Explain the question. What does it mean that you don't know what it means that the whole world's inside of me? Which part of that?
What does that mean?
You understand?
Just because of everything that you do impacts everything, and that to me doesn't. That
what
to
is
me
DNA?
Doesn't mean the whole world is inside of me. Huh?
Well, why not? Why not? Why doesn't that mean the whole world's inside of you?
Unless I'm misunderstanding what the whole world is inside of me means.
By the way, if anyone has any good mashal, I'm not. I don't have every mashal or whatever.
This actually is not so important to me. I was more concerned about what I said. You also said about the person, the ugliest person or something. I didn't hear the completion of that thought process. Maybe you said it. Maybe I didn't hear it.
Yeah, that was in passing. Actually, Muriel once gave a shir on that Gemara. That was in passing to say it's related to the same ideas you like. I know. I see where your brain is going.
No, it was all in the same part. Yes, I know.
Right.
And
right. No, I'm saying
you
that was
said then, and I'm not going to answer any questions on this. So that I didn't ask.
Right, because that wasn't the objective of the class. That was just illustrating it in some detail to flesh out the objective that we're chelik l'kamamal. That it's using that piece of God inside of us to perfect who we are. It's so you want to connect with Hashem. You have to first connect with your own Hashem inside of you. You have to first feel yourself, because yourself is Hashem inside of you. That's what's called the
person being ugly.
No, so that part of Rabbi Ashlag was just accentuating the question, or actually show, that how could it be that we have deficiencies if everything was created by God? Hashem knew this all about us.
Okay, so what's that answer?
How could a perfect God have made an imperfect being?
Right.
So the short answer, of course, this is not we're not going to be able to answer it. It's not that format, that platform, but the short answer is that it's really is Hashem. It's just the one difference is that we are given the ability to receive from Hashem. That that's what we call our rutzen. Again, the way to receive, Hashem wanted us to receive. The way to receive is to have that desire, that longing. So when we could reconnect, that's what we have by the marital cycle. Is also the same idea, is that disconnect, is that desire is lacking. But that's all as an objective of creating that unity of connection. That's what all the cavities in the world are, what's called the tzimtzum. It's just as a vehicle for us to make that and elevate that and show that's actually a good thing. Like I was giving the mashal with the people that have certain desires.
You're saying that deficit creates more rutzon? I feel like you're either not saying enough words or I'm missing something. I don't know.
It's something that. It's because I'll tell you the reason why I can't say it, because there's more variables that are not on the table yet. That's why. There's gonna be a lot more groundwork that we're gonna talk about. It's gonna come up about the neshama and the guf. When you understand the guf, you'll understand what that deficiencies are and how that relates to the perfection of humanity.
Creates more rutzon. What creates more rutzon?
No, you are your rutzon, and Hashem, you are that's the deficiency. When you want something, you're craving something, that's your lacking. That is the, so to speak, the ugliness in the world. That gets elevated when we fulfill that. And the objective is to fill that.
And how do we fulfill that? For example, by
receiving the greatest pleasure. So you can imagine a person has a desire for a person of the opposite gender. So there's many ways to do it. You could do it on the internet, or you could do it with a spouse. It's the same desire, and you get to choose where you're going to go ahead and plug that in. That's what Toiv and Ra is. That's what existence or disconnecting is. It's connecting or disconnecting. That's the purpose of the world.
Can you pick another desire example?
Yeah, the desire to eat.
Okay.
All natural desires work like that. Is that it was given to you to sustain your system. It's the greatest life. It's all life comes down to the nutrients that we eat. Or you could go ahead and eat junk food. That desire could be perverted or it could be channeled.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to clarify. That was the objective of tonight's class. Okay. The selfprojectclass@gmail.com. We appreciate again all the feedback.
Does anyone else have questions?
It's really besides. Again, it was philosophical. If people appreciate it or want something else or whatever, email us, let us know. I appreciate it very much. Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks,
Shlomie.
Shlomie.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.